with a new enthusiasm to work with the people of Kashmir to get them justice and peace and their right, basic human right, to decide where and when they want to live. We have given a few months back right as a United Kingdom to people of Scotland, that they can decide their future. In few months' time, we will be giving again, you and me will be getting as a British citizen to decide whether we stay with Europe or not. If we can decide our future, why can't the people of Kashmir decide their future as well? My first speaker is Member of Parliament, and we are very lucky that today we have got many people in this Parliament who have a Kashmiri origin, who were born in Kashmir or had their parents or people coming from Kashmir. So first speaker happened to be a Kashmiri origin. He was born in Kashmir, if I'm not wrong, and now he lives and represents Perivale in Birmingham, which is also a very huge community of Kashmiris. And I will ask him, because he has to go to another meeting, and you will understand that MPs will come and go, and I hope that Lords and my main speaker will stay up to the last to even answer your questions or comments when we finish. Can I ask, first of all, Khalid Mahmood, Member of Parliament, Perivale, to speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ashari. Can I amend the record or put the record straight? The senior most Kashmiri parliamentarian that is Lord Ahmed, and he was the first Kashmiri member of the House of Lords. And so just put the record straight. Unfortunately, this is far too many meetings that I've been at in relation to the issue of Kashmir. And I'm getting increasingly frustrated by attend. Whilst we have this meeting and we're getting frustrated, there are people who have been summarily tortured and beaten up by the Indian authorities. And that has gone on for too long as well. And if we're getting frustrated, I just can imagine what these people are like, feeling like when they've had over 600,000 troops on them. The only country that has given total exemption to their troops in legislation that they cannot be questioned, they cannot be held to task on all the atrocities that they commit regularly on the streets of Kashmir. The only country that hasn't been assessed or questioned or brought to task on mass graves that have been proven, not just by the Kashmiri community, the Indian NGOs, and also Amnesty International have provided evidence that this has happened and this has gone on. So, you know, apart from the human rights civilities across the whole of India, where I've got a huge amount of Sikh constituents who regularly and currently have huge amount of persecution within Punjab, and people have been summarily disappeared, beaten up, tortured regularly there as well. Assam is another place, and many other places in India. Yet the international community has no stomach for tackling any of that. Whenever somebody else is doing it, and you give the example of what's going on in India, they turn their backs on it, and they're not able to take to task those issues. If it's about human rights, if it's about civil liberties, then it must be equal for all. All must be treated the same, and they're never, ever treated the same. And I think that's what we've got to do. I know my topic, and I'm just coming to that which is about what we need to do as political parties in the United Kingdom. What we need to do as political parties in the United Kingdom is to have a standard, balance, and fairness the way that we deal with all countries. If we can prosecute people in Bosnia, quite rightly, we should prosecute them for their human rights atrocities. If we can hold other people for human rights atrocities, whether it's Assad, whether it's anybody else within the Gulf, fine, we should do that. I agree wholeheartedly with it. But why is it when it comes to India that we give them a flyby by the red arrows, putting up the Indian flag up there and saying that's okay? We can criticize all we want Saudi Arabia about the human rights issues. But when we have the largest culprit of what happened in Gujarat, what continually happens in India, we fly their flag for them. How is that not double standard? How is that right? And I think those are the issues that we've got to address. And I think we can do that through our political parties in the United Kingdom. We need to work together, irrespective of what party you are, We need you to get in, whether it's Liberal, whether it's Labour, whether it's Tory, and whether it's Independent as well. I think what we need to do is we need to get people across here and look at those. And I think for far too long we've had a very diverse agenda on this. Why don't we focus the agenda on where we should be at? Focus the agenda on the issue of human rights and civil liberties, the atrocities that are taking place day in, day out. Let's focus the agenda. Let's bring them down. India wants to be on the Security Council. It wants to be recognized as the largest democracy in the world. Well, let it behave like one. Why doesn't it behave like one? Why does nobody take into account that it behaves like one? I have no objection to them becoming on the Security Council or being the largest democracy, but unless it proves that it is one. And that's the test that we've got to hold for them. And let's sort of come here, please, let's go forward and see an agenda that we can work on and hold these people to task through our parliaments, through our parties. And let's not create double standards. Let's do something that we can work on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Khalid Mahmood Saab. Khalid Mahmood Saab was a part of that campaign when the Labour Party in 1995, led by many other parliamentary councillors in the United Kingdom, passed a resolution that when we come to the government, we will positively work to resolve the Kashmir issue. Although Labour Party tried it, I think Robert Cook was a leading light on that, and then David Miliband, still we remember when he said, when there is an elephant in the room, you cannot have peace. And I think he was demonized for that. Now, my next speaker happened to be member of House of Lords and is a Kashmiri, was and have been campaigning, as Khalid Mahmood said, for this cause on human rights and peace. Not only for people of Kashmir, but wherever there is a violation of human rights, he has stood on the principle of right things to do. Can I invite Lord Ahmed Afragram to speak to us?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, Your Excellency, High Commissioner of Pakistan, members of Parliament, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me first of all say thank you very much to All Party Parliamentary Group on Third World Solidarity for organizing this event, and I thank both Raja Najabat Saab and also Mushtaq al-Ashari Saab for organizing these meetings on regular basis. I think whilst I thank my friend and my brother Khalid Mahmood Saab, he is the most senior member of Parliament from Pakistan Kashmir origin in the House of Commons, so I need to compliment him as well for the hard work that he does. First of all, I just want to remind everyone that Kashmir Solidarity Day was first actually launched by Qazi Hussain Ahmed Saab. May Allah give him the highest position in Jannah for doing it. It was Qazi Hussain Ahmed Saab and Jamaat Islami that actually started Kashmir Solidarity Day, and then Mohtarma Benazir Bhutto Shaheed actually made it legal for the government to actually show their solidarity. Pakistan nation to show their solidarity with the Kashmiri people, and it was good to see Mian Nawaz Sharif Saab also remembering the Kashmiris last week on the 5th of February. And I just want to sort of reiterate everything that I say in every meeting to say that inshallah when Kashmir gets its freedom, Kashmiris will always remember people of Pakistan origin for supporting Kashmiris without any conditions, and that's the only, Pakistan is the only nation that actually supports Kashmiris. So I think my topic is role of international community in Kashmir issue. All of you know the United Nations resolutions of 1948 and 49 and the obligation on international community. You know, we've seen it in Iraq, we've seen it in other countries when the international leaders, they talk about United Nations resolutions, obligations under international law. And our leaders always talk about, they make a reference to the United Nations resolutions. Whether it is a chapter 6 or a chapter 7, whatever the resolution is, the very fact that there is a legal document and you cannot supersede it by bilateral agreements between India and Pakistan, because the international law is very clear. Those resolutions are still on statute and they will always be until they're implemented. And the one in particular, that giving right of self-determination, free and fair and impartial plebiscite to the Kashmiri people is still legal. But sadly, the international community has a number of issues. One, after 9/11 and 7/7, we have seen the international community actually change the language. Before 9/11, 7/7, many people, if they didn't call Kashmiris freedom fighters, at least they didn't call them terrorists. Because you have 700,000 soldiers, like Khalid has said, like Lashari Saab has said, engaged in war crimes, engaged in abuse, torture, extrajudicial killings, and of course disappearance and rape of Kashmiri men, women and children. I just want to say a number of things, because here I just want to bring in something that in the past here in the Houses of Parliament, members of Parliament have said we don't get information. And because sadly, actually, we are very good at doing demonstrations outside High Commission, small demonstrations. We are very good with organizing meetings, but we are not very good on social media. So here you have, now I've given this information. British Friends of Kashmir, something that I am connected with, have now got all these social media sites for your information. If you want to put up any videos, your articles, your any information, please help us to keep it updated. It's something that should have been done 20 years ago, 10 years ago, but sadly we haven't done it. It's only just in the last 2 months. And this will, inshallah, we have people, dedicated team who are working on it. So if you want to take information and share it with others and even members of Parliament. But since 9/11, 7/7, and since the change of the world, we've seen that less people want to talk about Kashmir and less people want to talk about Palestine. And we know there are some brave people like Gerald Kaufman, who still talks about Kashmir and also Palestine. And in fact, I was in Manchester with him the other day and I really loved what he said. He said, I've been in Parliament now for 47 years. And if it takes me to stay in Parliament for another 47 years until Kashmir is freed, I'm not retiring. So we need people who are dedicated, who are committed, people who are not afraid of raising the issue of Kashmir and raising the abuses of human rights. Sadly, I think Mr. Lashari is absolutely right that in 1995, and I know he just said other people involved, I was the one who actually chaired the, I don't want any plaques or anything for doing it, but the Labour Party's resolution, in fact, Lord Qurban Sahib was there, many other people were there. Many constituencies, 9 constituencies actually sent the resolution, and it was Sir Gerald Kaufman, actually, who was Shadow Foreign Secretary. He drafted that resolution. I chaired the meeting here in Parliament. I wasn't a member of Parliament. And Claire Short, Sir Gerald Kaufman, and Max Madden were 3 people who sat around me, and we launched that resolution. And then, alhamdulillah, and thank God, that Sir Gerald Kaufman was able to negotiate with the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party to withdraw the resolutions, but to have it as a party policy. So I want to put it on record and thank Sir Gerald Kaufman, and I want you all to thank him. So international, whilst, you know, I accept sometimes our expectations are more than what people can deliver, but there is an obligation on the international community. But if I just can say that even OIC or Arab League haven't constantly actually supported our cause. Arab League does little bit. They've got this contact group, and they, at the United Nations, they have a side meeting, and it's great because the Azad Kashmir leaders get a chance to go to New York, and they can have a few days holidays there. But sadly, nothing is delivered. At the United Nations, Kashmir used to be discussed on annual basis. Sadly, that's been removed now as well. At Arab League level, we've never had support. And I remember even meeting with Yasser Arafat, Sir Gerald. And I asked, when I met with him, I said, you know, even when I was a young lad, I supported the Palestinian cause. Why didn't you support the Kashmiri cause? And he actually told me, he said, you know, sadly, I agree with you, I should have supported Kashmir cause. But because India was a bigger country, and because we had the world split into the capitalist world and the socialist world, and the socialist world supported the Palestinian cause. But America, NATO, and Western Europe did not support our cause because they supported the Israeli stance. And so therefore, I was too busy making friends with the Indians. Today, sadly, even though the Labour Party had this policy, and Robin Cook and even David Miliband was prepared to stand up when he went to India, and he was prepared to talk about Kashmir, the Conservative Party, and if there are friends here from the Conservative Party, I please ask you and I challenge you to go and ask the government or anybody from the Conservative Party to raise Kashmir, because they are not prepared to raise Kashmir. And in fact, if anything, even when Pakistan wants a criminal for some sort of money laundering cases, Indians put pressure on because their fingerprints are all over that money that has come to London. And you know what I'm saying. And inshallah, I've written a letter today and it will become public, but the point I'm trying to make to you is that there's so much pressure. Today's relations between India and UK are mostly based because of business. It is these billions of dollars of contract that is being given to the UK and also Europe as well, and the United States of America. And so therefore, none of these countries are prepared to raise the issue of human rights and the issue of right of self-determination. It is good that we talk about Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland. It is good that we talk about East Timor and South Sudan and all the others who've been given. But nobody wants to talk about Kashmir. It is because India is too big and too powerful, and they don't want to do it. But so, I can go on for much longer, and Lashari Saab is saying don't. All I want to say to you is that thank you for coming here and supporting the Kashmiri cause. Thank you for supporting the Kashmiri people's right of self-determination. Thank you for continuing, Raja Najabat, Mushtaq Lashari, and all the others. By the way, all those members of parliament who continue to support Kashmir cause, please continue doing it, because even if we don't get the results this year, next year, or in 5 years, one day Kashmir will be freed and Kashmiris will get the right of self-determination.
Ahmed's history is so much that even if he starts saying one word on each year, I think he can continue, and you and I will be sitting here all night. And I know that Member of Parliaments have other engagements and they want to leave, so I will be skipping some of the program to others. And I know that Naz Shah, who is now Shadow Minister, want to leave as well. So can I invite Naz Shah to say a few words before she...
Good evening. First, a word of correction. I'm now the DPS to John McDonald, Shadow Chancellor, so not quite Minister just yet. I might be heading that way, but hey. But we've got to talk about the oldest members of the Lords and the oldest members of Parliament. Actually, I have the title of the newest in Parliament, and I'm very proud of that. I'm not the youngest, unfortunately, that will be my sister Shabana Mahmood, but I am most definitely the newest member, the Kashmiri daughter of Kashmir. Also, whilst I have the utmost admiration and my absolute inspiration is to Gerald Kaufman, I am not prepared to sit here for another 46 years discussing this issue. And the reason I'm not prepared to sit here is because none of us should be prepared to sit here for another 46 years. Because this issue is something that we must resolve in this Parliament, if not for another Parliament. And as my fellow colleague Khalid Mahmood from Perry Bar said, you know, I've only been in Parliament less than a year. And whilst I really welcome the opportunity to meet people like yourselves, and I get told in Bradford, particularly because of Rajan Jabal Saab, to all the meetings on Kashmir, I don't want to attend meetings on Kashmir. I want to attend meetings which tell me that Kashmir is free. That's what I want to attend. I want to attend meetings where we talk about the economic development of a free Kashmir, of people that have run Kashmir. I don't want to read statistics like the ones that I have here. Custodial killings over 7,000, 126,000 arrests, more than 22,000 widows, more than 10,000 rapes, and more than 107,000 orphans. I do not want to stand here and read these statistics again. I want to say, and I want everyone here to be able to say, we played our part in securing and making sure that we played our part and we have contributed to the freedom and self-determination of our Kashmiri brothers and sisters. That's what I'd like to see. I would also echo what I said in the last room, which is I will continue to speak, highlight the issue of Kashmir, and that this is not just about Kashmir's right of self-determination. We must move from that and see it as a humanitarian crisis that this is. It's not about whether you're Indian, Pakistani, Muslim, Sikh, Hindu. That is not the issue here. This issue is about our basic rights that we are born with, of living a life free of fear, living to the best of our abilities, free of persecution and free of any kind of dictatorship. That is what has to happen in Kashmir. And if you are on the side of justice, regardless of skin colour, regardless of gender, regardless of race, regardless of country, you have to be on the side of the Kashmiris. You have to stand up for the Kashmiris. You have to take their plight to wherever you can. And that's an obligation which I take seriously, and no doubt all of us in this room take seriously. On a final note, I wish you well for the rest of the evening. I congratulate all of you for your continued efforts. I don't have such a long list of what I've achieved on this issue. I'm hoping I won't, with the best intentions, because I'd really like to see this Parliament to see a shift. I think the government needs to do more. I certainly will lobby for it. And I will certainly speak not just of the persecution in Kashmir, but the persecution in Pakistan. There's a debate this week, which is also important, about the persecution of minorities within a free country. So let's not forget that persecution exists in countries that are democracies. So it's not just about those that are occupied. And on that note, thank you very, very much for this. I wish the APPG well, and no doubt if there's anything I can do, you have my commitment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Naz Shah. I was corrected by Ahmed Ali Sayyed, who is one of the very senior journalists, that the solidarity Solidarity Day with Kashmiri was established in 1974 by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto as the Prime Minister, and he has corrected me. That is one correction for everybody. Now my next speaker. Thank you very much. The next speaker is a writer, is a journalist, very long-standing supporter of Pakistan. She lived in Pakistan in late 70s for a few years, and she has written many books, but particularly books on Kashmir. Kashmir in the crossfire and Kashmir in conflict. Can I invite Victoria Schofield to speak on history and way forward on Kashmir issue? Victoria Schofield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Your Excellency, Lord Ahmed, an old friend for a long time, and Lord Kaufman, and ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be here on another Kashmir Solidarity Day, but I feel that I'm also echoing the previous speakers that I don't want to have to speak at any more Kashmir functions, because it's about time the issue was resolved. Now, I've been asked to speak on history and the way forward in 10 minutes. But I could spend the whole evening talking about history. I could also spend the whole evening talking about the way forward, but I will be brief. Where does Kashmir's history begin? You can't parachute into Kashmir's history, but by force of necessity we have to. I think we should parachute firstly into 1846, when by the Treaty of Amritsar, the British, for geostrategic reasons, decided to create what we know today as the state of Jammu and Kashmir. The correct name is the state of Jammu and Kashmir. For short, we call it Kashmir. And they did so very much for strategic reasons, because Britain was at war with the Sikhs, and in order to create a convenient buffer, they decided to put together lands that had been conquered under the Sikhs as a princely state, ruled by Gulab Singh, a Dogra Hindu from the Jammu region. And this is why you have the map here in front of you, and it's a useful map to look at. The state of Jammu and Kashmir actually comprises several component parts. And we have obviously in the present day what we call Gilgit-Baltistan, we have Ladakh, we have Jammu, we have the Valley of Kashmir, and then we have that narrow strip of land which we call Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Again, it's not Azad Kashmir, but that's what we call it for short. It's Azad Jammu and Kashmir, and that name came into being in 1947, the free part of Jammu and Kashmir. Of course, all these facts have other sides to them, and this area is what the Indians call Pakistan occupied Kashmir. We'll get to that in a minute. So the first date to bear in mind, if one wants to understand the history of Kashmir, it really goes back to 1846. More importantly, what's very significant about that date is that, especially in Kashmiri psychology, and I've interviewed so many Kashmiris who said to me, you British, you sold Kashmir, because that was effectively the terms of the Treaty of Amritsar. For 7,000 lakh rupees, the Gulab Singh had to pay to the British. They needed the money, they needed to pay their troops, so they were quite happy to take the money. But it permeated the psychology that Kashmiris were sold, to such an extent even that Sheikh Abdullah was wanting to try and get together the same amount of money and pay it back so that they could be free. And it's an integral part of that damaged psychology that I've found in my research of Kashmir. Of course, the next date that's important is 1947. And you've heard from Lord Ahmed about the United Nations resolution and the request for a plebiscite. 1947, as we know, Britain gave independence to India and the new Pakistan into West and East Pakistan. Unfortunately, there were over 560 princely states, some no bigger than a landed state, others as big as a territory. All of them had to be allocated to one or other new dominion, as they were called. Britain feared what it called the balkanization, of India. And so part of the partition plan was very much to bring together these component parts. As we know, as history relates, the state of Jammu and Kashmir, its fate was undecided. 75% majority Muslim population, bordering the new future West Pakistan, but with a Hindu ruler who wouldn't decide. And it's one of those great tragedies that we have in history, that in a way the sins of the day are visited on generation after generation. If that decision had been taken, we would not be standing here. We would not need to have to wait for Sir Gerald Carlton to be in the House of Commons for another 47 years, because the issue would have been decided. But it wasn't decided. And so that is another critical date for students of history, and I encourage you all to read the history of Kashmir so that you know what that history is. It was one of the reasons why I became so involved with the history of Kashmir, was to get more knowledgeable than just the rhetoric and to understand what actually happened. Critical date, again, third date, is 1953, and I state this date, it's not often mentioned, but it was when that special status that Kashmir was given when it performed its temporary accession to India was the beginning of it being eroded. And it's a very sort of convenient fact to forget that the state of Jammu and Kashmir under Indian administration became temporarily acceded to India because of the Act of Accession, the Article 370 of the Indian Constitution. It is a separate issue, and I mention this because whenever anybody talks about, well, if you give independence to Kashmir, it'll mean a whole sort of chain of events in India, and they don't have Assam, they don't have the Punjab, they don't have everything else. Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir is a special issue. It had special status by Article 370, which is still protected. And so it is an important date because that's when it began to be eroded and this attempt at integration really started. Of course, the next date is 1987, not 1989 yet, but 1987, because there were rigged elections in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. And it was this feeling amongst Kashmiris, and I know this because it was in 1981 I first myself physically went to Kashmir, and then I began to consistently go to the Valley of Kashmir. And I spoke to a number of people, and it was this feeling that we've tried the political process. These elections, it's now acknowledged, were rigged, and that is when you had this beginning of feeling we have to take up the gun. Now, nobody condones terrorism, and we're not talking about terrorism. We're talking about a sense of tremendous frustration that we tried the political process. Even Syed Sulauddin competed in those 1987 elections. And I think, again, if you put it regionally, what was going on in the rest of the world? What was going on in Afghanistan? You had the jihad. You had all the Western world supporting the jihad. You had the introduction of the word into our vocabulary of mujahideen. And I remember I was working at the BBC at the time, and we had a big issue about, do we put mujahideen in italics or in inverted commas? Is it a word? It had not been a word in our vocabulary. And now we write it like an ordinary word. Everybody knows a mujahid is a freedom fighter. And I think this is very important because this was definitely an inspiration for those Kashmiris to pick up the gun. They felt frustrated at the political process, so unfortunately they picked up the gun. And the insurgency began, as we know, in 1989-90, and it is still going on. Of course, it's horrifying when you read the statistics. The widows, the orphans, and when I feel that it's the widows, the half-widows, the arrests. As I say, statistics, even if it was only one of each, it's still too many. The next really big date is, of course, 2001, and I think Lord Ahmed alluded to this, that after 2001, all movements were lumped together as being acts of terror and terrorist movements. And I know this adversely affected the Kashmiris movement, because suddenly the idea was you can't have a mujahid, you only have terrorists. And it meant that this whole idea of freedom fighting was no longer fashionable, which we had supported in Afghanistan. And this is very important to remember. But at the same time, even amongst the freedom fighters, there was this realization that the gun has brought the issue out of cold storage, it's brought it to international attention, but we can only resolve it with dialogue. And so essentially the second part of my talk tonight is the way forward. The way forward has to be dialogue. Far too many people have died. Far too many half-widows exist. There are far too many martyrs in the martyrs' graveyards in Srinagar. And I've been there and I've seen the mothers weeping for their husbands or for their sons. I think we are very comfortably well off in this country. We do manage to travel with our passports. We have European access to Europe. And I've got friends in Srinagar who, if they want to come to a conference, they can't because they're not given a visa, or they're given a country-specific visa, or it's just so very difficult to go anywhere. And I consider that also a deprivation of a basic human right. In a world of the internet, of social media, they ought to be allowed to travel the same way as anybody else. They ought to be able to have the rule of law. They should be able to have the same freedoms that we have. And as one Indian journalist said to me, the trouble about Kashmir will always be special. It'll always be suspect. But that's, ladies and gentlemen, not good enough as far as I'm concerned. Of course, one wants the dialogue. We want to push for the dialogue. It's imperative that there is dialogue. Because to me, looking at it in 2016, Kashmir has become too dangerous to neglect. It isn't a remote area. It affects all our lives. What happens between India and Pakistan, two nuclear neighbors, affects all of us. One only has to look back at the situation in 2002, when both armies were massing on the borders. There was a threat of nuclear weapons being used. This affects everybody. It affects all the millions that live in that region, and it affects the rest of the world. I think the humanitarian issue, as I say, it's really uppermost. However many the statistics are, there are too many people who suffered. I mean, if you go from the statistics here of nearly 100,000, 94,000 here, it's too many. 55,000 were killed in Vietnam, American soldiers. This is double that amount in an insurgency. Economically, think about the amount of money that is being spent on weapons to fight and kill, when these people in both areas need development, education, health, communications. So that's another reason why it's imperative that we push forward for the dialogue. And I think finally, because, as I say, as a humanitarian and as somebody who loves the region and has been very fortunate in the connections I've made over such a long time that I'm now embarrassed to say that I first went to Pakistan to live in 1978. I must look very sort of fresh, because whenever I go to Pakistan I get asked, is this your first visit? And I go, oh no, I've been here many times, and they look a bit disappointed because they want to be able to tell me how wonderful the country is, which I already know. And indeed, India is a wonderful country. The people are wonderful, but it's the governments we have to pressure to sit and negotiate. And what I am absolutely adamant about is that there has to be representation from the state of Jammu and Kashmir. I always remember, I think it was Shabir Shah who said to me, Simran's failed because it did not represent the views of the sons of the soil. So one cannot expect that there's going to be a resolution of the issue without a representation from the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So I hope I haven't got over 10 minutes. The history, the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victoria. I think you have given us some information which is needed for a lot of people who are first-timers. Can I welcome all the councillors from Conservative Party, Labour Party? I can see Chaudhry Mehboob from Redbridge, Natasha from Southall, Aisha was sitting here. I hope you will take this message back to your constituencies, other councillors who are sitting here. Take your message back to your MPs and your local constituents and carry on working with us, that we are able to resolve issue of Kashmir, not after a long time, but very soon. And I hope it is done within this parliament and before the next elections in India and Pakistan are held. Can I now invite Victoria, and you are 100% right. Third World Solidarity believes in dialogue because you cannot solve the issues through wars. We have seen too many wars, too many killings, and we should sit on the table and do the dialogue, which is the most important thing to do. Now, many times it has been mentioned, the father of the house, one of the longest serving member of parliament, previously shadow minister under many leaders of the Labour Party. Can I invite Sir General Kaufman, who have been working on the issue of Kashmir and Palestine for many years, along with General Kaufman.
Your Excellency, this weekend has been Kashmir Solidarity Weekend, and it has been extremely important that we demonstrate vocally and visibly our solidarity with the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And it's quite right to talk about Jammu and Kashmir, because while we concentrate on the Indian occupation of large parts of Kashmir, let us not forget that the people of Jammu are suffering as well. And I've been there, and I've seen them in their refugee camps in Jammu. And it is inexcusable of the Indian government that while they spend billions on armaments, they will not spend the money on their own refugees, and they will not spend the money on their own poor. There are more poor people in India. There are more people in India living in poverty. There are more people in India living on the streets, and I've seen it myself, than in any other country in the world. And it is a serious discredit that while more than 100 million people in India live in poverty and on the streets, India spends all that money on armaments, and India has nuclear weapons. I've seen it all for myself, and I've been there many times, and it never fails to hit me. It never fails to hit me. Heaven knows, within the standards and criteria of this country, I have a disproportionately large number of people in my constituency who live in poverty and deprivation. But that is as nothing to people who don't even have a tent to live in, who live on the streets. When the Indian Prime Minister came here not long ago, I was invited to a lunch given in Manchester because they wanted his money. And he came to Manchester, trailed like a pet dog by the Prime Minister of this country, and I refused to go to the lunch because I was not going to be part of that ethos where money counts and people and freedom do not count. As has been said by a number of people, I'm involved in the Palestine issue. And a couple of weeks ago, I spent 5 days in Jordan with a delegation of people who saw the King and others to discuss Palestine. I impressed upon them that although the Palestine issue is a heartbreaking and infuriating issue, and the failure of the international community to address itself to it is a scandal, the Kashmir issue is even older than the Palestine issue. The Kashmir issue next year will be 70 years old. It is the oldest unsolved confrontational issue in the world. And the failure of the international community to deal with it is not only culpable, but stupid. Because as long as there is nuclear confrontation between India and Pakistan, the world is unsafe. We look at terrible things happening on this planet. We look at what is going on in and around Syria. We look at the, and I was in Jordan when the budget of Jordan is being broken because of the amount of money they spend on looking after Syrian refugees. But more people have died over the Kashmir issue even than have died over the Syrian issue. And it is a matter, as I say, not simply of heartlessness, but of stupidity that the leaders of the international community fail to be active on it. When you look at President Obama, the worst Democratic Party president of the United States in my political lifetime, what does he do? He sends drones to murder Pakistanis. 3,000 Pakistanis murdered by Obama. He sends pursuit squads into Pakistan, violating Pakistan's sovereignty in a way that he would never tolerate the violation of his own country's sovereignty. This country, the government has said specifically, clearly and deliberately that it will not involve itself in the India-Pakistan issue, and says that it's a matter only between India and Pakistan. Well, they don't say that about Syria, where they carry out aimless, lethal, culpable bombing just to make a show. They don't say that that's a matter between the Syrian people. This government is culpable in the way that Obama is culpable. And for that reason, what we do, every time we do it, is indispensable and essential and must go on. We will not let go. We will go on until the Kashmiri people have the right to decide their own future.
Yes, yes, yes.
And we will go on, and I will go on, and my colleagues will go on, but most of all, the community will continue to go on and will not let go.
Thank you very much, General Kaufman. I also want to welcome Councillor Raja Alias from Boston. He has traveled a long way. Can I ask Raja Bijabat to come here and invite, after Lord Qurban Sen to say a few words? I think he can come here. Can I invite now Lord Qurban Hussain of Luton to speak on the role of United Nations in Kashmir issue?
Your Excellency, my Lord, Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening and Assalamu alaikum. We have been going over some of the lessons of history this evening, and I was impressed by the knowledge of all the speakers, and particularly Victoria, that gave us some history lessons. But let me remind the people that the Kashmiri history is very long and old history, and you've covered many aspects which are very important in our history. But let me remind you one or two others before I go on to my subject. Kashmiris fought against the foreign occupation in many parts of their history. During the Sikh regime, in 1832, Kashmiris uprising went to the devil. Then the Sikhs held two leaders of Kashmiris, Sabz Ali Khan and Malik Khan, from Mang, which is in district Punch. Killed them brutally and hanged their bodies in the square of the city for weeks. Another example, during Maharaja Hari Singh's time, on 13th of July 1931, another uprising came out. And remember, this is all long before a demand for independent Pakistan, because independent Pakistan's resolution came in 1940, 23rd of March in Lahore. And we are talking about 13th of July 1931, when uprising in Srinagar against the Maharaja's rule, and the Maharaja's forces opened fire. And history tells us that many people lost their lives. So the Kashmiri struggle has been going on for centuries. And Kashmiris are determined that they will never rest until they get their freedom. So whoever is occupying them must learn from the history of Kashmiris. They are not going to rest until they get their freedom. And coming back to the subject that I've been given to address this evening, that is Kashmir at the United Nations. We know that Indian subcontinent was divided on two-nation theory. Muslim line or Muslims, and the rest went to India. And a couple of things that we have to remind ourselves. It's not that many people don't know, but just to remind ourselves. Muslims of Indian subcontinent were forced to have a homeland for themselves. Although those who had suffered at the discrimination of the majority Hindus had asked for an independent country in March 1940. But history tells us very clearly, right up to 46, right up to 1946, Muhammad Ali Jinnah was prepared to live within the Indian Union. The cabinet mission that came to UK, they said Muhammad Ali Jinnah put some conditions for the rights of the minorities, and if these conditions were met, he was prepared to stay within the Indian Union. The Indian delegation agreed with it. And then when they went back to New Delhi, they said, oh no, we made a mistake, we can't do that. And that was the point when Muhammad Ali Jinnah said to the British government, right, here we are, we had an agreement before you, and the Indian government, Indian leadership has betrayed only a few days later. And what is going to happen once you leave? And the British government understood, yes. They thought that it's not going to. Any guarantees that Indian National Congress leadership was giving to Muslims was not to be trusted. And hence, in 1947, Pakistan became independent, and as has rightly been said by previous speakers, more than 500 princely states, including Kashmir, were given the right to decide about their future. And most of them, nearly all of them, except 2 or 3, were had either become part of India or Pakistan. Of course, in the case of Hyderabad and Junagadh and Kashmir, there were disputes. But particularly with Kashmir, let me give you another example. I think we ought to understand this in order to understand the issue of Kashmir. The uprising against the Maharaja was so popular when Pakistan came into being and the Maharaja was not deciding which way to go. The Muslims were already against the Maharaja's rule. They were fighting for freedom anyway, and they took up arms against the Maharaja. Azad Kashmir, Gilgit-Baltistan was fought by the local people, by the generation of my grandfather and father, who liberated Azad Kashmir and the Gilgit-Baltistan. And the Kashmiris in the valley would also have been liberated if India did not run to the United Nations. Because by that time, the Pakistani army has also come into support of the Kashmiris, and India soon ran to the United Nations. It is India who ran to the United Nations in January 1948, asking for a ceasefire, and made a commitment that the Kashmiri people will decide at the end of the day what they want to do about their future. It wasn't Pakistan, it wasn't Kashmiri, it was India who went to the United Nations and promised, and not promised to the United Nations, they promised to the whole world, and gave pledges that the Kashmiris will get to decide about their future. And of course, the first resolution came into, the first resolution of the Security Council came in April 1948, and then the UN, the Commission on India and Pakistan also passed the first resolution on 13th of August 1948. It has many political criteria how to implement the resolutions, but it gave the Kashmiri people the right to decide about their future. Many resolutions after that, January 1949 and many others, in total many others, about 11 resolutions on Kashmir. And it has always been India who has been running away from its commitment. In 1949, the Indian Parliament gave Article 370 to have Kashmiris a special status within the Indian Union. Even then, the United Nations has said that it is not going to change the status of the Kashmir issue. When later on, in 1951, elections were held, and India said, oh well, now that the Kashmiris have participated in the local elections, there is no need for the UN plebiscite. The United Nations again said that no, participation in local elections cannot be substitute for the right of self-determination. And the UN has reiterated that again and again. And for that, I believe, as Victoria had said, that there are, she mentioned 5 areas which which constitute as parts of the Jammu and Kashmir. The Valley of Kashmir, Jammu, Ladakh, AJK, Jammu and Kashmir, Gilgit-Baltistan, and of course not to forget the small area which at the moment is under Chinese administration. It all is a part of state of Jammu and Kashmir, and any change for the administration purposes, whether they are in Valley, Azad Kashmir, or in Gilgit, or anywhere else, they will not change. They will not change the status of Kashmir issue at the United Nations. Because the United Nations resolutions are, they stand as they were. Although, when Kofi Annan was the Secretary General of the United Nations, he seemed to have suggested that perhaps those resolutions we don't have to really adhere to, but they are resolutions of the United Nations. As has been said, although they are under Section 6 and not 7, which means that they are advisory, and if they are under Section 7, then force can be used if you don't implement those resolutions. But under Section 6, they are in advisory capacity. Therefore, no force is to be used if they're not implemented. However, looking ahead, India is looking for a permanent seat at the United Nations Security Council. I think every one of us should keep reminding, at least the British government, that they must not support India's application for the permanent membership of the United Nations Security Council until India implements the UN resolutions. There are two parties to that at the United Nations, India and Pakistan. I have to say that Pakistan has never, on record, ever said no to the rights of the Kashmiri people or to the implementation of the United Nations resolutions. Whereas India has always dragged their feet and changed their mind and changed their policies. Kashmiris are disappointed, however, in some governments' times, and particularly in General Musharraf's time, governments start talking about out-of-the-box solutions and forgetting the UN resolutions and maybe we can do something else. I think it will be a mistake if Pakistan government ever decided to forget the UN resolutions, try to negotiate a settlement. Any settlement without the reference to the Kashmiri people, without the Kashmiri people deciding on their future, will not be sustainable. And Kashmiris have a long history of fighting against the occupations, and they will continue to do that. And at the moment, Pakistan, as Lord Ahmed rightly said, and he's my big brother, and I have learned quite a lot since I have come to the house, because he has been here many years before I have. And what he has done for Kashmir, I have to learn from him. But I'm saying that on Kashmir, there is no other country, as he said, other than Pakistan, who has supported the Kashmiris' right of self-determination, for which the Kashmiri nation is very thankful, Your Excellency, to your country, the people of your country. Governments we might have issues with, when we see that they are slipping away from the UN resolutions, we might have issues with. But the people of Pakistan, we are so thankful to the people in Kashmir and the diaspora for their support over the years, and we hope that will continue. And Kashmiris, wherever they are, this is third generation in UK now. But since 1947, India thought by putting Sheikh Abdullah in prison, the nation will forget it. By killing a few thousand people, the Kashmiris will forget about their freedom, but that is a mistake. Kashmiris will never give up until their right is being given to them to decide about their future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lord Qurban Hussain Saab. Can I invite just last speaker before His Excellency can respond and tell us what the government of Pakistan and what is their stand. Can I invite to speak briefly Raja Nijamat Hussain, who has been mentioned many times. His work on Kashmir is a very long-standing and his struggle for it, and he has got many friends here as well. Raja Nijamat Hussain.
नहमदुहु व नसल्ली अला रसूलिल करीम अम्मा बाद फ़ाऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम. Your Excellency, High Commissioner of Pakistan, Lord Qurban Hussain, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, good evening. Can I thank Ashari Saab for helping us, supporting us, and always raising the issues and human rights violation for suppressed nations in third world countries. On the subject which he gave me today, the role of governments. I'm a grassroots worker, not even leader, not parliamentarian. I've given my life to this subject. Now what I would like to say, most of the parliamentarians have spoken about the role of governments, history and geography as well. So what I would like to request all these friends, you have seen the parliamentarians who came to attend besides Subjal government, they were all Kashmiris. We are sitting here nearly 100 people, and none of our member of parliament came here to listen and attend this seminar on Kashmir subject. I've been organizing these events every month in this parliament and in European Parliament. But like Lashari Sahab said, I would like to make 3 requests to you all. Please go home and write your MP while you was not there. Lashari Sahab and myself, we sent an invitation to more than 200 MPs for both occasions. For meeting for Afzal Guru's Martyrs Day and for this evening as well. So you can see the situation. We are complaining about the governments, about the foreign affairs, and about the policies. But on the other hand, we vote a lot of people, a lot of parliamentarians who get our votes, but they don't represent us properly in this parliament. So keeping that in mind, whether they are conservative, Labour or Liberal, or any other political party. So that's one thing. Second thing, I would like to request everybody, we will have another event on International Women's Day, 8th of March, in Wilson Room, 5 o'clock, and we need women there, please. Not old people like me and you. So we need women representation there and youth as well. The last thing which I would like to ask only, please write to United Nations, write to your Foreign Secretary, your Prime Minister about the Kashmir issue and human rights violations. This report, which is a very small, but I've got a big report of 8,804 pages, which I will present it to Shadow Foreign Minister this afternoon. And hopefully, we are putting pressure that we will have another debate in House of Commons, and we need your support for that as well. We had 2 debates in the previous parliament. In this new parliament, we need another debate. We've got secretaries from parliamentarians from north of England, from Midland, not from London region, from the south. So please, we need your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Raja Nijamat Saab. I think there were about 50 apologies because I sent it to all parliamentarians. We have a APPG notice board when every parliamentarian who is Lord or MP has received invitation of this meeting. I received about 50 apologies because there is a debate going on. You can see And I was confirmed by 2 MPs, and I am very pleased to see Councillor Shafiq from Slough. Your MP, Fiona McTaggart, promised to drop by. She has not, so go back and ask her why you were not here. And also, a Member of Parliament from Luton, if there is anybody from Luton, Calvin Hopkins said that he will come, so he has not come, so ask him, why did you come to this meeting? And there were a few others who have promised. I also welcome Councillor Baird from Newham, and I hope he will go and say, there are many councillors, I can't name everybody, but all councillors are welcome, and go back. And Tahir Malik Sahib and Wade, go and ask Stephen Tim why you were not here. So ask your MPs, as Raja Nizabat has said to you. I think the next meeting, whenever we have, we should have more MPs, more parliamentarians to put pressure on British government. As I said previously in my remarks, that there are councillors from Conservative Party, Labour Party, Liberal Party, so they all should go back, members as well. I also want to welcome, in this meeting today there are a few people from India as well, the journalists and other people. So I welcome them to listen to us, to raise these concerns to their government and their people as well. So it is very important that we expand and bring more people. David, I'm doing your job, so can you come, David Anderson, the chair? I hope I've done it very well, so come and sit here. So I think it is very important that we expand and we go beyond that norms, that these are the people who are from Kashmir region or Pakistani region who come to these meetings, but we should go beyond. And today I've got another gentleman who is a very big name in the cricket. From 69 to 87, he played cricket and then moved to South Africa. So he's sitting with his sister Yunus Ahmed, the younger brother of Saeed Ahmed. Can I welcome him? So I think it is very important to go beyond your norms. Can I now invite, and Dave, you came on a very right time, because His Excellency is going to speak, and then we are going to open it for question answer. His Excellency, since he has come to London, I think he has done a lot of work. His officers have done a lot of work. We welcome Deputy High Commissioner as well, Dr. Israr Hussain, and a few others who have worked at the background of this meeting as well with me to make it more successful. Can I invite His Excellency Saeed Nawaz to speak?
Jay Anderson, Chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Third World, members of the House of Lords who have just stepped out, members of Parliament, and of course our friend Mr. Lashari, who is a leader and who is one very active in organizing such events. And of course I cannot overlook the important role played by Raja Nizabat in organizing such events. Last but not least, of course, we heard our friend and voice of the voiceless people of Kashmir, Victoria Scofield, who gave a very excellent tour of the horizon of the history of Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir. I stand corrected. Ladies and gentlemen, I know I'm the last speaker. I don't want to take much of your time. A lot has been said in excellent speeches which were delivered here. Some very passionately out of the personal experiences of the people who have gone through the atrocities and the violations which we are talking about here this evening. And as Victoria gave, toward the horizon of what is this Kashmir issue and problem about. And of course, this would be very helpful for the activists who are here this evening, first time ever, yourself and another one which was recognized with Lashari Sahib. So, very briefly, I would say that I'm here as a representative of the government of Pakistan to express our unwavering commitment and solidarity with the people of Kashmir who have been facing the atrocities of the occupation forces for the last nearly 70 years now. We are talking about one of the oldest unresolved UN pending agenda item, which is the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. This is not which happened yesterday. You heard Lord Nazir, you heard others, Lord Hussein, others, giving the history. I don't want to go into details because I'm conscious of the fact that we have little time left before we have to conclude. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's one of the oldest unresolved disputes on the UN agenda. Secondly, we are not here. Let me also commend you for your presence this evening, because I think it's not easy. It's a working day, it's a late hours in the evening, but still, you people have made yourself available for a cause which is very dear to your heart. So, of course, thank you, and I think it's because of people like yourself, efforts, that today we are seeing the Kashmir cause resonating in the corridors and the halls of this Westminster Parliament, which is, I think, in my reckoning, is the manifestation of the good work done by these people who have been trying to keep this cause above and alive and kicking. So I think with this, I would say very briefly that we are not here to discuss any territorial dispute. We are here to lament the fundamental human rights violations of 15 million people of Jammu and Kashmir. So I think all those who try to give it a spin that as if it's a territorial dispute, they need to stand and understand it and get the perspective right that we are here to demand the human rights of the 15 million Kashmiri people who, like any other people in this world or any other individual in this world, have the right to self-determination. So that's one basic thing. Secondly, we were, as Victoria was talking about the rigged elections of 1987, thank you for reminding us, because I can share with you that the rigged elections of 87 or subsequent ones are no substitute for the plebiscite which has been committed by the United Nations or by the international community to the Kashmiri people that they will have the right to self-determination. So this is a couple of the points which I wanted to make, and lastly that despite the fact that there are 700,000 Indian occupation forces in Jammu and Kashmir today, but still I can say with confidence that more than ever before, the Kashmir cause is alive, the Kashmir cause is on the world scanner, because you see, I have been seeing in the last 15 months that this has been discussed and raised in these corridors, in these halls of this very historic precincts of Westminster. So I think this gives me a lot of hope and a lot of courage. And last year, in this very parliament, there was a backbench debate on Kashmir. Again, this gives me a lot of hope. And I must compliment and I must commend all of you and the people and the leaders who have been taking the lead in organizing these events. Because it might look to us, it might appear to us that, year after year, it's been 70 years, that we have been discussing this issue, nothing happens. But friends, don't be disheartened. Things are moving. You can see the winds of change blowing all over the world. The world is changing. Things are changing and changing pretty fast. In these changing world, these changing times, I'm sure nobody can keep the 15 million people against their will, under the shackles, or subjugated. So I think time is not far away, my dear brother Kashmiris and sisters. Time is not far away when, inshallah, you will reach your destination and then you will be master of your own destiny. With this, I once again thank all of you for your patience, and I assure you, on behalf of the government and people of Pakistan, that inshallah, we stand shoulder to shoulder with our Kashmiri brothers and sisters in their legitimate cause and their legitimate struggle for the right to self-determination. Thank you so very much, Mr. Lashari, and once again, Raja Saab, because I was a while ago at an event organized by him. Thank you very much for raising the voice of the voiceless people of Kashmir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have few moments. I know, Amanullah Khan, you will be the first. We have few moments for people to ask question or a comment. I think question you can't because speaker has already left, only Victoria, His Excellency, and Qurban Hussain is here. But can I ask you to say your name and very briefly speak whatever you want to say on issue of Kashmir, on this seminar. Amanullah Khan.
Very good. Excellencies and Victoria Shafiq and the other MP Stevenson, if I'm wrong, please excuse me, Nim Wise and Kashmiri leader Shaban. The thing is this, I come here as an avid, enthusiastic and sincere non-Kashmiri supporter of the immortal cause of Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir. I have a poem which I've written right here by a young, beautiful leader of PTI sitting by me. It comes saying, blood, blood everywhere, but this is Muslim blood. So this is not blood. To me, it's a flood of blood. And they say, no, Mr. Khan, it's a fountain, not flood. But then I say, Amanullah Khan, anti-imperialist, anti-Zionist, and anti-Indian fascism in Kashmir. I say, it is a Holocaust to be staged. It's a mini Holocaust. And the voice comes from the towers above, from President Obama's land, and some fascist people there, they say, oh no, they say to me, be silent, Mr. Khan, don't you know us? Come out. Just, why the hell Kashmir is on back burner? Why the hell Kashmir is on back burner? Is it because we have blamed the leadership, not competent, full of incompetence, running after business? Business of what nature? Business of personal nature. Because leadership is in stupor. I think Victoria understands me, she's from Oxford. Because leadership is in stupor. Stupor, shaky, and not firm. Long live Kashmir struggle. Let's wake up for intifada. Let's wake up for intifada. I met Yasser Arafat. You know what intifada is. There, and not merely talk or shed tears, because tears will not shed all our fears. Let us act. Let's act, not live on hope. Let's act. Not live on hope, Mr. Shaban. And hope is me, a door. You understand, door?
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Khan Sahib. Thank you very much. Very kind.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And
Thank you. Thank you.
you're chairman of the Solidarity. I congratulate you, all of you, including His Excellency
Thank you
Ibn
very
Abbas.
much. Your name and
My name is
briefly.
Aslam Khan. I'm a councillor from the Borough Council for Health. And I suppose it's a privilege to be here. It's great to hear so many passionate speeches. I'm a young politician with a different attitude, with different expectations. And I am a Kashmiri. I have been involved in the Kashmir campaign to a limited experience. But my question to most of the politicians here, everything that I've been brought up and been educated, the approach should be based on outcomes. Whether I attend events in the community or this is my first event here that I've attended, unfortunately I haven't seen any the frontline politicians. Quite often when we hear most of the MPs, they are either backbenchers or about to retire, people with less influence. For those people who are in a position of power, my question to you is that your party has been here for several years. How come that you haven't attracted the attention of whether frontline politicians, whether they are in the opposition or the government. And the question to all my colleagues, the councillors and the politicians, how come when you hold the events there in Pakistani restaurants and you are trying to convert the converted, how is it that we don't have the wider community? And you mentioned the world is changing very fast, and we do understand that, but yet Kashmir is not at the forefront of that changing world. What is it that we need to do? What will be the critical success factor that would help us to promote Kashmir in a much more effective way? That is my challenge.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I think it is in your hands. There is a gentleman at the back who wants to say something. Yes, please.
My question is to Honorable Ambassador of Pakistan. What is
Your name is?
Mohammed Sharif, Councillor from Islam. My question is to the Honorable High Commissioner. What is the Pakistan's official stance on Kashmir issue? Is it supporting self-determination or supporting Kashmiris to become a part of Pakistan? The reason I ask this question is when you stand in an election in Azad Kashmir, you are asked to sign a pledge to support Pakistan. Secondly, there are rumors about Gilgit and Baltistan, which is part of Jammu and Azad Jammu, which is part of Jammu and Kashmir. Rumors are Pakistan is attempting to make that as a province. So, what is the actual official stance?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shari.
Briefly.
I must congratulate you for holding such a wonderful event. Topic is very close to my heart. I will pick up what Naz Shah said. This seminar is about showing solidarity with the Kashmiris. Nonetheless, he mentioned about the persecution of minorities in Pakistan. I think you need to seek clarification from her that why is it that we need to bring this issue on this kind of platform. And I'm sure the High Commissioner can probably shed some light on it. And I would urge the High Commissioner to invite these people and really create awareness among them that the minorities are not being persecuted. Pakistan is under attack by the terrorists and extremists. So there's a long history. I don't want to dwell on that. Nonetheless, Pakistan as a state is not really part of any persecution of the minorities. And Pakistan nation is not. There is a handful of people who have killed the generals, the army officers, and the police, and the Shias, and Sunnis, Deobandis, and religions. All sorts of people have been killed there. The second part I would like to pick up on is we need to have, because this is our party parliamentary group, I think we need to work hard, tirelessly, supporting the APPG of Third World Solidarity, to bring people from Conservative Party, although we have two lords, but I think MPs, I understand where you're coming from, my friend. We need to have not only the backbenchers, but those people who are on the front line. We need to bring them and create awareness among those people. And very unfortunately, when we have this kind of seminar, these people leave before any question is asked. So I just rested that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dr. Qureshi Sahab, the last question, and I will ask His Excellency to respond and then vote of thanks from David Wilson. Yes, Dr.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I would like to bring it to your attention that India is the only country in the world which has problems with all its neighbors. And its application to become a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council is a joke. Because if you're not good with neighbors, you cannot involve in international issues. The fundamental problem we are having as an academic is the narrative on Kashmir. What is the narrative on Kashmir? Kashmir is not a real estate issue. It is a human rights issue. It is an occupation. And the people of Kashmir and Palestine have every right to resist that occupation and the occupying forces. We need to understand the difference between terrorism and independence struggle of the occupying people. And that needs to be understood by the businessmen who are doing business with India, violating the human rights, so there's no ethical foreign policy. And I'm talking about our own British government, that their foreign policy is not ethical. Yeah. If they are doing business with the Indians and ignoring the human rights of the Kashmiris, and they're killing people in Syria for no reason whatsoever. So India is the only country in the world which fit in the bill the resolution which was passed against Iraq, weapons of mass destruction, violation of human rights, and problem with all its neighbors. These are the three fundamental points which India is a candidate for the international intervention to resolve the ongoing and long-standing issue of Kashmir. And whatever may be the government of Pakistan's issue, it is an international issue between the people of the world, which they promise to the Kashmiris, and the narrative of the Kashmiris needs to be re-understood. If people are mixing jihad and terrorism and independent struggle, they need to be clarified this position. And I think Victoria can further explain this issue without going back into the long history, because obviously the Britain is responsible for all that mess we have left with, and they have more responsibility to resolve this issue as well, since they are in UN Security Council's permanent membership. And when Prime Minister Cameron promised India that he is going to support the seat, I think this is really immoral, unethical, and unjustifiable stance on his behalf. Thank you.
Let me close this door, because this voice is going on.
India should not be in the Security Council.
Shakir Qureshi sir, last one, please, because
कोई
we have
क्वेश्चन
to.
नहीं है, कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं है, जस्ट एक शेर कहना चाहता हूँ। पाकिस्तान हमारी रग रग में, कश्मीर हमारी शाहरग है। अगर हमारे मोहतरम कश्मीरी रहनुमा नजाबत साहब जैसे, जिन्होंने आज खुद को कह दिया कि मेरे जैसे बूढ़े खाना बंद करें, नौजवान शुरू करें, अगर हम इस पॉलिसी के ऊपर ठहर जाएं, इसके ऊपर इत्तेकाद कर लें, इत्तेमाद कर लें कि पाकिस्तान को अपनी रग रग में समा के कश्मीर को अपनी शाहरग बना लें, और फिर हम आवाज़ दें अपने नौजवानों को, अपने खवातीन को, अपने बूढ़ों को, अपने पाकिस्तान के मुजाहिदों को, तो फिर आपका मसला हल होगा। आज कई साल गुजरे के आपने एमपी को बुला के, वो थक चुके, ये लोग जो बैठे हुए हैं ये भी ऑलरेडी थक जाएंगे, लेकिन आपको ये काम करना पड़ेगा, जो पाकिस्तान की बहस करते हैं उनको रोकना पड़ेगा।
Thank you very much. Can I just say a few words in response to Councillor No, sir. No, sorry. Obviously, we have to pay this room at 8 o'clock, and we have got to respond to the questions. And David Wilson, can I respond to just Councillor Aslam Khan?
I'll respond.
Can I just tell him something? I know you are going to respond. David Wilson will respond to him, but let me tell him that we are having an international Women Day on 8th of March, and I will coordinate with Nizabat. It will be in Wilson Room, and all speakers will be women. That is the main source, and I think we will try to make men sit over there. And then we have Aslam Khan Saab meeting on...
And inshallah there will be conservative ministers as well.
Yeah, and we have a meeting, Aslam Khan Saab, on 14th of March, Tony Benn's 3rd anniversary, and I assure you there will be a lot of, not only indigenous population and white people, but other people speaking on Tony Benn. And the third important thing is the 30th anniversary of Third World Solidarity will be held on 11th of April, and I assure you 90% will be indigenous population. So we do work with other people, and I'm very pleased that today all non-Pakistanis are invited by Third World Solidarity from one end to other, and there were about 6-7 people. So I think we have achieved something positive. And when we hold a meeting on Ethiopia, there were 100% non-Pakistanis. So we do go beyond our boundaries and work with other communities as a Third World Solidarity. So can I ask Victoria, do you want to respond? Anything? I think everything has been said already. She has given, but if she wants to respond.
No, I just thank you for keeping Kashmir alive, as I know Third World Solidarity does, and I remain an optimist. I think it's been a long and tortuous story, but I urge everybody in the room to read more and understand more, because I think it's terribly important when you want to approach an issue to have a big understanding of it. And I thank His Excellency for the support, because it's a human rights issue. It really is. It's no longer a territorial issue, if it ever were. It's a human rights issue. Thank you.
Your Excellency, Councillor asked a particular question.
No, very briefly. First, I'll respond to Councillor Aslam Khan sir. And my big one-liner is, get up and get counted. Stand up and get counted. The answer was given by Raja Nizabat. You have to write to your people because you elect them. and then you have to hold them accountable. So I think you have given the answer yourself, that why they don't show up, because I think you have to proactively engage with them. We should not only be, because for the politician, I shouldn't be saying it, I'm sitting here, but still, I can say as an ordinary citizen or individual, two things are important, votes and the funding. So you have to see, you have to do introspection. About the gentleman over there, the council sahab, you said, what is the official position of the government of Pakistan? The government of Pakistan believes in the aspirations of the Kashmiri people. Just one line. Whatever they will decide, we will go along with it. Taha Qureshi said, made a very pertinent point about, so-called victimization of the minorities. There are issues, but I think we ourselves, Pakistan itself, is a victim of all sorts of, vilification and I would say intrigues. So I think there's a perception and there's a reality. The reality is we ourselves are victims, but the perception is, there are some vested interests who would like to portray it as if, we are the bad guys, we are responsible for everything going wrong in the world. But that's not correct, my friend. Seeing is believing. I think all those people who have visited the country, like Victoria Scofield, they are not, ordinary people. She's a scholar, she's a writer, she's a journalist, she's a thinking person. So if she thinks, all is not that bad as some people would like us to believe, would like others to believe, then I think there's something wrong with those people that are in the agendas. Finally, I think, Dr. Saab, yes, you're right, absolutely, because we have to change the narrative, and there is a change already taking place. But I think Victoria has already responded to you when she said the world changed on 2001, when the freedom fighters and the terrorists were bracketed. So I think the world has changed, but there's no reason for being disheartened or giving up, because the legitimate causes and the legitimate struggle must go on. Because I think this would be unfair, for the world to sort of have a blind eye after what they have done. It was legitimate a few years ago, and all of a sudden, because of certain undesirable or undesired developments happening, everything can become topsy-turvy. That's not correct. The freedom fighting or the fundamental human rights like self-determination cannot overnight change. So I think, well, yes, the world would like us to believe that everything has changed, but no. The principles will remain, the fundamental principles remain always the fundamental, and there will be no compromise of the principle. And I think the legitimate struggles, the right to self-determination is a fundamental human right, and nobody can take us away from any one of us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I think I met Dave in 2005 when he got elected from Bladen. He came from a miner background. He was vice president of miners, and I can see few people who are of my age who must have seen the fight of miners in this country in 1984-85, when they were trying to get the better rights for the trade union. And he was vice president of that. Since I have met him, the Third World Solidarity has gone from a very small human rights organization to an international organization. And as I said, we do hold a lot of meetings on Palestine, Ethiopia, Cuba, to Kashmir, and from Palestine to Chechnya. And I think he has taken us above. Can I ask, and now he is a shadow minister, that's why he was not here from the beginning, but he promised that I will come at 7:30 when I get freedom from chamber, and here he was. Can I invite him to say a few words and vote of thanks to you all? Dave Anderson, chairman of ABC.
Thanks very much, Mushtaq, for that undeserved good welcome. Can I just say, in starting, the His Excellency was right. Politicians are bothered about votes. They are bothered about funding. Some of us are bothered about doing the right thing. That's why I'm involved in this group. It's like doing votes. There's no votes for me in here. There's no money for me in here. I'm not bothered. This is about doing the right thing. And the right thing is standing up against oppression. I just see a colleague from Luton. When we have one of these meetings, every MP in this House is invited. Every MP is invited to be a member of this group. We have quite a large group, but not everybody's on it. People have other work to do, people may not have an interest, but in terms of trying to get people here, we always try and do that. The work that we take out of here will be fed by what you said tonight, when we, for example, have got a question down next week if it gets raised, if they're allowed to raise it by the Speaker, on challenging the government, our government, on where are they now on Kashmir. It might not get heard, but if it does, I will be picking up what's being said here tonight to make the case. The reality is, it's hard not to be negative. I was looking around before to see my friend Taj was in. He isn't. I've been promising Taj the Chart for 10 years that things are going to get better in the situation of Kashmir. But unfortunately, I haven't kept that promise. And I haven't kept that promise because forces greater than me have stopped me keeping that promise. Because you know the reality. You're part of a power player in the same way as the Kurds were a power player in Iraq in the 1980s, when we as a country in the West sat back while Saddam was trying to wipe the Kurds off the face of the earth, and while 1 million Iraqi and Iranian young men were killing each other on battlefields. The West shut up because they were happy, because they were keeping the Ayatollah under control. And Kashmir, unfortunately, is just seen as a pawn in a game of chess. And it's quite sad that that's the case 70 years on from a situation which should never have existed in the first place. When I was walking across the street, I thought, you've not got to be negative, but it's hard not to be negative. But the truth is, and I'm really, really glad I caught what these experts say, because the truth is, if we don't stay positive, we play right in the hands of those who let this thing fester forever and a day. I must have mentioned about me being a coal miner. My oldest friend who died 3 years ago was an 85-year-old coal miner. And he used to say to me, as long as you keep running, they'll keep chasing you. So the first thing you do is stop and stand up. And even if they keep attacking you, when you're standing up, you're fighting them. And all I'd say to you tonight is, there's people in this place who will continue with yourselves to stand up and fight. But one last thing, if you really want to make an impact, if you want to come to these meetings and see your MP sitting here, don't come here. Go to his or her surgery, take your friends, because His Excellency is right. If you start putting your MP here, you might lose my vote. You might not get funding of our community if you don't make a stand on behalf of what we want. That's why you make a real impact on people like me, the grassroots. So the next time we come here on this issue, perhaps you can see 5 or 10 other people in here who haven't engaged. But it really is about putting them under pressure, and through them, we hopefully put pressure on our government to do what we all know is the right thing. And that's the real sadness of why we're sitting here tonight for probably the 10th year in succession. We've been having these discussions in here, and I know the Kashmiri all-party group has gone even longer, because it isn't being raised at the highest level, because the people at the highest level in my government before 2010 and the present government see it as being, well, it's not very nice, but it's under control. We've got to make them see that's not good enough, and we will fight and keep on campaigning to make that happen. And I thank everybody who's spoken. I'm really sorry I couldn't get here as much as I said. I was in the chamber till 7:30, and I know I've missed some good speakers, but I'm really, really pleased, as we always do in this group. This is your parliament, this is your building. You pay for it. You have the right to be here and come and have a go at people like me, and long may it continue. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, and have a safe journey. Thank you.
What do you think of that? Really good.